Hello and welcome to this basic StageFlow tutorial. For this tutorial, we're going to recreate the stage that you see before you, which is the World DJ Festival that happened earlier this year in Korea. And what makes this a nice stage for a tutorial is that it consists of a simple back wall, two screens on the wings, and then some cut up screens on either side of the main wall with lots of negative space in between. Now, I've already got the output map set up where we have the main and the two screens on the wings, and on the other output we have those 18 cut-up screens. This is in total two 4K outputs. It's quite considerable. This one's not entirely filled, but it's quite a lot of pixels. Now, the first thing that you would usually do is that you would try to recreate the layout of the stage as you see it in the real world, but with 2 times 4K worth of pixels plus all the negative space, that is going to be a really big composition, and that's what we want to prevent. So what we'll do is just keep it simple. We'll select all the slices, say match output shape. And then we're just gonna really simple make sure that the stage left stuff is on stage left. Make sure that the stage right stuff is on stage right. Let's put the center in the top and put these guys in the bottom. So we'll do it like that. And then we'll just nudge these ones back into place so we have a nice and compact composition. In total, this is giving us 56,000 by 2,000 pixels. Just a little bit over a single 4K. So I'm gonna say that that is my composition size. Hit apply, nudge this back into place. That's all looking good to me. So I'll hit save and close. I'll open up Chaser real quick. Give me a new Chaser. There we go. That's all looking good for me. And I just used that to create a pixel map. And like boom, boom. Boom. All set to go. Creating the input map, done and done. Now, of course, we do like negative space, and that's where StageFlow comes in. StageFlow opens and asks us whether we want to use the Arena 6 or the Arena 7 file. We're working in Arena 7, and it automatically loads up the input map that we had just created. Now, the first thing that I want to do is give myself something to work with. So let me get that pre-vig image that we just had, and we drag that in to the background. And let's reposition that. Now, this image just serves as a sort of a guide for us that we have something to work with. It doesn't necessarily has to align pixel perfect, but as long as these screens are roughly the same size and they have some sort of indication where they need to go, we're good. So we'll keep that nice and centered, and at that point we'll lock that bad boy. Now, the trick is to position these screens roughly where they will be in the real world. And in the beginning, that is all just sort of eyeballing it. But as we come closer, we will see some nice features. First of all, you see that these two are snapping their centers to each other. And on the third one, there is another nice feature, which is if we bring it in close, it will snap to the distance between the center ones. So at this point, the center from here to here is exactly as far as it is from here to here. Pretty awesome. Now we continue here, that here the one we're interested in is this alignment. The next one will align between two of them. And the third one is also in place. Then the same thing will occur, that right now the distance between this center and this center is just as far as there and there, which means that we can now move these ones into place really quickly and easily. Negative space for these 9 shapes laid out and good to go. Now, just like we have this equal distance between centers, we can also do that across the whole stage. So here you already see that now this center uses the center of the stage and then sees what's on the other side of it. And this means that if I move this just a little bit down and then find that sweet spot again, this is a little nudgy. So there is my center. There we go. Now we can be sure that this one and this one are exactly on the equal distance from the center. And then we do the same thing for these cut-up screens, where after some nudging, we now see that this screen and the center is equally as far as that screen. Now, where in the beginning, this is sort of just eyeballing, having stuff exactly the same distance from the center is really important when it gets to mirroring and symmetry later on. So at this point, taking your time to do it right and being precise is helpful. So that one is in place. Now it looks like the screenshot I took of the stage is not exactly symmetrical, but as long as we trust the guides, they will never guide us wrong. I'm going to zoom in a bit to make sure that I'm in the right snapping places for everything. Even though it's out of view, this one is still snapping to the middle of the other stages. And boom, we're good to go. You can, these numbers don't actually mean anything. You have an infinite canvas to work with, but the numbers, I do show them so that you can sort of check if everything is okay. So if it all is correct on the other side, this one should be on negative 3,291. So if we scoot over, to the other side, this one is indeed a negative 3,291. Now, a little interesting thing about this stage is that these screens are the same pixel pitch, but this one is a higher pixel pitch. And this is actually quite easy to solve as well. So Let's first put this one in the center. And then we just eyeball it, holding down Shift and Alt to drag proportionally from the center. And yeah, there's some perspective stuff going on, but I feel that that is a good place to get a nice view of the stage. And yeah, that is the stage recreation done. So after we have gone through all the effort to lay out this stage perspective correct, including negative space where we want it, of course what we want to see is some content playing across the entire stage. Now in StageFlow we do that by creating looks. And the first look that we want to create is this perspective correct look that covers the entire stage. So we'll select all the slices that we want and we hit the plus to add a look. StageFlow does everything for us. It figures out where all the slices are. It figures out where the content would end up. And at that point, it is as easy as adding content to the composition and adding the StageFlow effect to the layer. And boom, at that point, everything happens for us automatically. All the math is done behind the scenes so that everything ends up in the right places with areas of negative space cut out, the center screen scaled up to have the perspective right amount of pixels, and on the far left and right we have the side screens. Now I understand that that may be a little bit difficult to see what's going on like this. So what we'll do is we'll turn on Siphon on a Mac. Texture sharing for Spout on a PC is also supported. And back in StageFlow, we'll enable the preview. And we'll make that a little bit bigger so that we can have a better understanding of what is actually going on and how the content is being positioned. The ones that are paying attention among you will, of course, have realized, even on this tiny preview, that we are stretching 1080p across a much larger canvas, and we are losing quality like that. And indeed, for a look like this, you need higher quality content. And for that, it is as simple as adjusting the look to not use 1080p as an input, but instead use 4K content. And then we'll see that things have changed over here, but we can now drag some 4K content in here. And when we trigger it, we see that that is spreading across the stage nicely. If you're into numbers like me, StageFlow will tell you that even at 4K content, you are blowing this up to 350%, 3.5 times as large, which means that this stretched out look over the whole stage is nice for some shots and you may be able to get away with it, but the majority of the time even 4K content is not enough to cover this because of all the negative space we got in here. And we need to come up with something different. So instead of just this first look, we can create more looks. And we have look 2 that we also start from 4K. And in that case, we say, well, actually, let's just put some content on the center stage. Let's put some content on the cut up on stage right, on the wing on stage right, the cut up on stage left, and on the cut up on the wing on stage left. Boom, that is look 2 done. We now have 5 focal points in the center. Cut up stage right, wing stage right, cut up stage left, wing stage left. Back in Resolume, it is as easy as saying that we don't want to use look 1, but we want to use look 2 instead. And voila, we have this content going across the whole stage. This one is nice, but it's sort of samey, so we can still get some nice dynamic in the stage going by selecting our focal points, and instead of taking them from exactly in the center, what we'll do is we'll take them just part of the content, and boom, it updates automatically, and we see that the content is now playing from over there. Let's actually not do it from all the way over there, but let's snap it there. So what you've seen here is that you can select different points, different corners to snap from different points. So now I'm snapping the top right of the focal point to the slice, but then I want to move it a little bit back so the center snaps exactly to the center of that tiny little screen. So that's coming on nicely. Now I want to do the same thing for the wings. So I select the focal on the wing, and I want to snap the top right corner. That aligns perfectly, but we have an interesting situation where it now thinks that this little cut-up screen should be part of this focal point, which we see over here can give an interesting result, but in this case it's not what we want, and it's as easy as saying that that slice shouldn't be part of this particular focal point. So now we want to repeat that on the other side of the stage. So we snap it into position, boom, and we remove the unwanted screen. And there we go. That is giving a nice look that doesn't blow us out of proportion. 101%, exactly 4K. Now, as you can see here, we can go as far as 16 looks. Now, I have yet to come across a show where I needed all 16, but it is nice to show you how you can combine these guys. So let's go back to StageFlow and let's zoom out a bit, and let's select our third look. And here, let's do something that I haven't showed you yet, which is that I can select all the cut-up screens, say that I want to add a focal point to that. And in the settings of the focal point, instead of using perspective mode, which puts the content across all the screens, we say that we just want to duplicate them, which is essentially what Slice Transform does, except everything is nice and snugly within one effect. So also on the stage left, we want the second focal point to duplicate. And then back in Resolume, we can then toggle on look 3, which shows you that you can combine looks together. It understands that these cut-up screens are used in look 3, so it will use that look for those screens, and it will use look 2 for the other ones. So I can enable that one or put that one on top of it. And you can actually go pretty far with this by back in StageFlow saying that we don't want this one, and this one, and this one to be a part of this look. Let's actually disable that one and do the same thing here where we don't want these screens to be part of that hook. And we create some nice options for us to play with. Also important to know is that, of course, StageFlow respects alpha. So if I apply content which has alpha, and this particular look going across the stage doesn't really work well for this bit of content. So instead what we'll do is we'll use look 2 for that content, and that fits nicely across all the screens. Now, of course, because we're using an input map, StageFlow plays well with others. You can, before the show, create custom content that fits this input map, and regardless how you lay out the stage in StageFlow, all that content will still fit. And, of course, we can use Chaser to the input map to quickly, let's drag across all these bad boys to select all the slices in step 1. And get us a nice solid color source. Make that bad boy white and add the random effect to that to get some of that blinky action. There we go. That's it for the beginner tutorial. I hope you're as excited as I am, and I will see you all in the advanced tutorial.